The Port Chatham Incidents. Port Chatham, also known as Portlock, lies on the southern end of Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. At first glance, the location is breathtaking, with mountain ranges stretching toward the horizon, rivers winding their way into the sea, and abundant wildlife roaming the wilderness. Fishermen have long known the waters of the region to be rich and rewarding, yet despite these natural gifts, Port Chatham holds a darker reputation. For decades, this place has been tied to mysterious tales of strange creatures, unexplained vanishings, and unsettling discoveries that ultimately forced its inhabitants to abandon the town. The history of Port Chatham began in the year 1787, when it was first inhabited. For a time, the community seemed to thrive, and by the 1920s, it even had its own post office. But just as the settlement appeared to be establishing itself, whispers began to spread of something unnatural lurking in the surrounding forests and mountains. Reports from a nearby mining camp spoke of an evil presence, something that walked upright like a man but had the strength and wildness of a beast. Trees were said to be torn from the earth and overturned, roots jutting skyward as if a force of great power had passed through. Witnesses insisted that no bear or wolf could have been responsible for what they had seen. Some pointed toward tales of bipedal creatures, such as the Dogman or Bigfoot, beings often spoken of in hushed tones by those living close to nature's edge. The strangeness of Port Chatham did not stop with disturbed landscapes. During this time, villagers began encountering far more unsettling signs. People bearing scratch marks were discovered in rivers, lagoons, and along trails. As the war raged overseas, the people of Port Chatham faced their own private terror at home. Even more disturbing, locals began vanishing without explanation. Families would find their loved ones missing, with no tracks or evidence to follow. These repeated tragedies weighed heavily on the settlement, and the fear grew unbearable. By the end of the war, the population had endured more than enough. Men and women who had built homes and lives there no longer felt safe in the shadow of the creature said to haunt their land. Entire families packed up and fled the town, seeking refuge in places free of unexplained horrors. Port Chatham was left abandoned, its buildings empty, and its reputation sealed as a place where something sinister dwelled. Though the town itself was deserted, the mystery of the creature continued to draw curious hunters and explorers into the region in the years that followed. Evidence only deepened the mystery. Hunters discovered enormous footprints measuring as much as 18 inches in length. While the shape resembled that of a human, the stride and pattern hinted at something animalistic, more akin to the movements of a deer or wolf. The prints offered no answers, only more questions. In the year 1973, 3 hunters braved the stormy weather in Port Chatham and soon found themselves stalked. They claimed that a being on 2 legs shadowed them, never fully revealing itself, but always near. Their fear was compounded by the sense that this presence had intelligence, waiting and watching from just beyond sight. 2 decades later, in 1990, another chilling account surfaced. A paramedic from Anchorage treated a 70-year-old prisoner who had been born in the Port Chatham area. During conversation, the paramedic casually mentioned having hunted near the abandoned town. The prisoner's reaction was immediate and intense. He sat upright, his eyes wide with alarm, and demanded to know whether the paramedic had seen it and if it had caused trouble. Even in old age, the prisoner carried a deep and lasting fear of whatever had haunted his childhood home. Today, Port Chatham stands as one of Alaska's most enduring mysteries. The wilderness has reclaimed much of the old town, but the legends remain as strong as ever. The tales of those who were found lifeless, disappearances, and strange footprints continue to circulate, passed down by those who remember the stories of their elders. To this day, no one has provided a definitive explanation for what drove the community away. Some insist it was a mysterious creature, one of immense power, unknown to modern science. Others suggest a spiritual or supernatural presence that cannot be measured by ordinary means. Whatever the truth, the shadow cast over Port Chatham is undeniable. Hunters and adventurers who venture into the area still report uneasy feelings, as if being watched by unseen eyes. The wilderness itself seems to hold the memory of what happened there. The mystery of rogue orca attacks. In the year 2020, sailors navigating the Atlantic waters off the coasts of Spain and Portugal began reporting a series of unprecedented and mysterious encounters with orcas. Unlike the typical interactions people had grown accustomed to, these were not moments of awe and admiration. Instead, they involved sudden and targeted assaults on sailing vessels, particularly focused on the rudders. Over time, these incidents became known as the rogue orca attacks, a phrase that captures the sense of unease and danger felt by sailors as they endured the powerful animals' calculated strikes. The most alarming aspect of the phenomenon was the way the orcas behaved with remarkable precision. On the 22nd of September in 2020, Graham Walker, the owner of a 45-foot yacht, experienced one of the most frightening of these encounters. His vessel came under attack by 3 orcas who rammed and bit at the rudder with such force that the yacht spun violently in the water. Walker described how the animal's strength caused the wheel to whip uncontrollably from side to side, making it impossible to touch without risking serious harm. The assault ended with the rudder destroyed, leaving the yacht disabled. That same day, Spanish authorities acknowledged the severity of the situation, and Spain's Ministry of Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda imposed temporary restrictions, banning smaller boats under 50 feet long from sailing in the waters between Cabo Priorino Grande and Punta de Estaca de Bares, the very stretch where the attacks had been concentrated. Researchers began to study the pattern of these incidents to determine the cause. By analyzing footage and damage reports, they noticed that the majority of the orcas involved in the attacks were young individuals. Among them, at least 2 bore signs of serious injury. Although it could not be determined whether the injuries had been sustained before or during the confrontations, researchers speculated that the sense of vulnerability or pain these orcas felt might have influenced their behavior. It was possible the attacks were born of perceived threats or were acts of frustration, but the consistency of the targeting suggested something more complex was taking place. One of the mysteries surrounding the phenomenon is the deliberate focus on rudders. Orcas are known for their intelligence and problem-solving abilities, and the repeated precision with which they struck this part of the vessel highlighted their capacity to learn and adapt. By targeting the rudder, they were effectively disabling boats, a tactic that seemed to go beyond instinctual reaction. The animals may have associated the rudder with the source of disturbance or threat in their environment, or perhaps the action itself became a kind of learned response passed among the young population. Over the next months and years, reports of these interactions continued, sparking fear among sailors and fascination among scientists. While there were no reports of harm to people, the psychological toll on those at sea was significant. The sight of massive black and white forms circling a boat before slamming into its steering system was enough to leave lasting impressions of fear and respect. For the sailing community, it became a matter of caution and preparedness, while for the scientific world, it represented a profound example of the complexities of animal behavior. The rogue orca attacks remain a mystery, emblematic of the delicate relationship between humans and the natural world. They serve as a reminder that even in the modern era, the ocean holds mysteries that challenge human understanding. Mysterious stone carvings found on Hawaii's shores raises questions. On the island of Oahu near Waianae, shifting sands caused by seasonal coastal erosion have revealed something remarkable: stones etched with human-like figures, hidden for centuries beneath the surface. This discovery has quickly become one of the most significant archaeological finds in Hawaii in recent years, offering a rare glimpse into the lives and beliefs of those who inhabited the islands long before the arrival of Europeans. Archaeologists identified a total of 26 carvings stretching across roughly 36 meters of exposed shoreline. These figures, carved into weathered sandstone, are not complex in detail, but their simplicity does not diminish their power. Long limbs, straight outlines, and minimalistic human features dominate the carvings, demonstrating a deliberate hand and a purposeful design. Researchers estimate that these carvings are over 500 years old, meaning they were created during a time when native Hawaiian society flourished independently, guided by traditions, oral histories, and a profound connection to the natural world. What makes this discovery even more extraordinary is its rarity. Petroglyphs of this scale and number are seldom uncovered in Hawaii. The last significant find of a similar nature occurred in the year 2016, making these symbols an invaluable addition to the body of knowledge about ancient Hawaiian culture. Each figure carved into the stone is not simply a piece of artwork, but a lasting imprint of identity, spirituality, and memory. These carvings remind us that Hawaii's human story extends deep into the past, long before Western contact transformed the islands. The true meaning of the carvings is still unknown, but researchers and cultural practitioners have suggested that they may have been tied to ceremonial practices, rituals, or storytelling. The figures may have been created to honor ancestors, commemorate important events, or serve as markers of spiritual significance. They may also have functioned as a visual language, a way for communities to pass knowledge, beliefs, or warnings to future generations. Without a written script, native Hawaiians of this era expressed themselves and recorded their worldview through oral tradition and through carvings such as these, leaving only tantalizing clues for us to interpret centuries later. For native Hawaiians today, the discovery is not simply a matter of academic curiosity, but an act of cultural reclamation. These carvings are a direct connection to ancestors, a visible reminder of their creativity, spirituality, and relationship with the land and sea. Each symbol etched in stone reinforces the idea that cultural memory is not lost, but waiting to be rediscovered. Preserving these petroglyphs ensures that future generations will have a tangible link to their past, a reminder of the resilience and wisdom embedded in their heritage. The placement of these carvings along the shoreline also adds another layer of intrigue. Positioned where the land meets the ocean, they reflect the deep interconnection between Hawaiians and the natural world. The sea was both a source of life and a spiritual force, and the fact that these carvings have re-emerged through the shifting sands could be interpreted as nature itself, offering a reminder of the past. Today, the site is being carefully studied and documented to ensure that these ancient carvings are preserved. Modern technology allows for detailed imaging and recording of the figures, safeguarding their design against future erosion or loss. While their meaning may never be fully understood, the symbols carved into Oahu's sandstone stand as a profound reminder that human history is far deeper and richer than written records alone. The discovery of these 26 carvings is more than an archaeological event. It is a bridge between the past and the present, reminding the world that the islands of Hawaii hold countless untold stories carved into their landscapes. The mystery of the Uffington White Horse. The Uffington White Horse is one of the most enduring and mysterious landmarks in Britain, a prehistoric hill figure etched into the upper slopes of Whitehorse Hill in Oxfordshire. Measuring 110 metres in length, the figure is formed from deep trenches filled with crushed white chalk, creating a striking contrast against the surrounding green landscape. Its elegant, stylized form can best be seen from the air or from vantage points across the Vale of Whitehorse, with particularly good views from the nearby villages of Great Coxwell, Longcot, and Fernham. Although the figure has been admired for centuries, its origins and purpose remain a mystery, leaving historians, archaeologists, and visitors alike to ponder the reasons for its creation. Dating methods suggest that the Uffington White Horse was made between 1380 and 550 BC, placing it in the Late Bronze Age or Early Iron Age. This makes it the oldest known hill figure in Britain, far predating the other chalk horses carved into English hillsides. Unlike these later figures, which often appear heavier and more grounded in their design, the Uffington horse is minimalist and abstract, with elongated limbs and a flowing, almost otherworldly form. It is this simplicity that has led some to describe it as one of the earliest works of minimalist art, a title that The Guardian once highlighted when praising its striking appearance. The mystery of the Uffington White Horse lies not only in its age, but also in the unanswered questions surrounding its purpose. No written records from its time of creation exist, and no definitive explanation has ever been uncovered. Some historians believe it may have served as a tribal symbol, a marker of territory intended to be visible for miles across the valley. Others suggest it may have been a religious or spiritual icon, perhaps representing a horse deity or connected to ancient fertility rites. Horses held great symbolic value in the Bronze and Iron Ages, often associated with strength, power and the movement of the sun across the sky. The possibility that the Uffington horse was linked to such beliefs has made it an enduring subject of speculation. Another theory proposes that the figure served as a territorial marker or signal to travelers and invaders. Carved on a prominent hillside, it would have been easily visible from afar, acting as a declaration of identity or strength from the community that maintained it. Its placement overlooking the Vale of Whitehorse only deepens the intrigue, as the landscape itself seems designed to highlight the figure's presence. What makes the Uffington Whitehorse even more remarkable is the fact that it has survived for more than 3,000 years. The chalk trenches require regular maintenance to prevent the figure from disappearing into the hillside, suggesting that generation after generation has valued and preserved it. This continuity of care speaks to the enduring significance of the figure, even if the original meaning has long been lost to history. Today, the site is owned and managed by the National Trust and is a scheduled monument, protected as a vital part of Britain's cultural heritage. Visitors continue to be drawn to its mystery, standing on the slopes of Whitehorse Hill and looking out across the Vale, wondering what inspired its creation so many centuries ago. The mystery of the Serpent Mound. Surrounded by forest on all sides and used as a popular tourist destination and dog park in the modern day, the Serpent Mound has continued to prove to be one of the most difficult mysteries to explain for archaeologists from around the world. Located in the secluded Midwest of the United States, in the rural area of Adams County, Mississippi, the Serpent Mound is an ancient structure carbon dated to have been created back during 300 BC. Who exactly created the structure is not entirely known. Original theories posited by archaeologists was that the Serpent Mound had been formed by the Fort Ancient people of North America, a Native American tribe of people lasting from 1000 AD to 1700 AD. These theories would be put into question, however, after more comprehensive carbon dating would take place, proving that the area's creation dates back as far as 300 BC with repairs made to it as late as 1000 AD, most likely by the Fort Ancient people at a much later time. This meant that although the Fort Ancient people would repair and maintain the mound, they were not the original creators of the mound and were unable to have been in the region during the time of its creation. The Serpent Mound itself also seems to display key pieces of evidence of a potentially obsessive culture surrounding the positions of celestial bodies, as the mound itself works as one of the most accurate calendars ever seen of ancient people. Such examples of this accuracy are that the high points of the humps facing outward on the Serpent Mound directly match the summer solstice, equinox, and winter solstice sunrise. The spaces between the humps at the highest and lowest points directly match the lunar alignments. The face of the snake directly points toward the summer solstice sunset. And lastly, the strangest example is that of the line created when the tail and face of the serpent are put across 2 points, also point towards true north and true south, measurements impossible to get from merely compass readings. No one knows how such accurate measurements could have been gathered by ancient people in the Americas during the time of the creation of the Serpent Mound, and little evidence has been found of any ancient cultures that would fit the profile of its creators. The mystery of the quipu. The quipu, sometimes called talking knots, stands as one of the most fascinating and mysterious systems of record-keeping developed by the ancient Andean cultures, particularly the Inca. Unlike most civilizations that relied on written scripts, the people of the Andes perfected a system of cords and knots that could communicate complex information without a single written symbol. Made from cotton or camelid fibers, quipu were not merely simple tools, but highly sophisticated devices that encoded census data, financial records, and administrative details across a vast empire. Their use reflects a remarkable level of organization and ingenuity within the Inca state, and even today, they continue to challenge modern researchers. The principle behind quipu rested on a base 10 system, where numbers were represented by different types of knots and their positions along the string. Main cords would hang vertically, with subsidiary cords attached at intervals, creating a branching structure that could carry multiple layers of data. For example, single knots, long knots, and figure 8 knots each represented different numerical values, while the spacing of knots indicated place value. Even more striking is the way that the color of cords factored into the communication, adding categorical meaning to the numerical framework. Through this system, A quipu could simultaneously convey both quantity and classification, offering a method of record-keeping that rivaled the written ledgers of other empires. The true scope of what quipu accomplished can be appreciated when one considers the size of the Inca Empire. Stretching thousands of kilometers across South America, from modern-day Colombia down into Chile, the Inca realm encompassed a diverse landscape of mountains, deserts, and coastal plains. To manage such a vast and varied territory, officials required a system that could transcend language differences and maintain consistency. Quipu became the backbone of this administration, allowing census takers to count populations, tax collectors to record tributes, and managers to track the storage and distribution of food supplies. Even labor obligations, known as the mita system, could be monitored through these knotted cords, ensuring that every community contributed fairly to the empire's needs. Despite this remarkable sophistication, the full meaning of quipu remains shrouded in mystery. Around 600 examples survive in museums and collections today, yet modern scholars have only partially unlocked their codes. While it is clear that they recorded numerical data, evidence suggests they may have gone further, potentially encoding narratives, genealogies, or even historical events. If so, the quipu may represent not only an accounting tool, but also a unique form of literature, preserved in fiber rather than ink. Unlocking this possibility could dramatically reshape our understanding of how the Inca preserved and shared their cultural memory. Part of what makes the study of quipu so compelling is how different it is from most systems of writing. It represents an entirely separate path of human communication, one not reliant on symbols or alphabets, but on texture, position, and material. The people of the Andes found a way to weave language into physical form, creating a method that could withstand the rugged climate and travel long distances on the backs of messengers. In many ways, it was a communication system perfectly suited for the empire's geography and needs. Although centuries have passed since quipu were last widely used, their presence endures as a testament to the creativity and intellect of the Inca world. The surviving examples hold secrets waiting to be revealed, offering not only a glimpse into the mechanics of governance, but also the possibility of rediscovering voices from an empire that left no traditional written texts. The quipu stands as one of humanity's greatest mysteries, a knotted language that once tied together a civilization and still challenges the modern mind to unravel its meaning. The mystery of Dighton Rock. One of the most interesting discoveries in North America surrounding an isolated forest nearby the city of Dighton, Massachusetts, is that of a large boulder described as being 5 feet tall, 10 feet wide and 11 feet long, featuring a number of strange petroglyph markings that few have been able to decipher into a readable text. This boulder, known as Dighton Rock, weighs more than 40 tons, roughly 80,000 pounds, and was originally located at the side of the Taunton River near Berkeley in the state of Massachusetts. The first mention of Dighton Rock dates back as far as 1680, when a man by the name of John Danforth, a resident of a newly formed English colony in the region, would make a copy of the images of the rock and have them preserved and sent back to the British Museum for examination. Despite a number of experts from around the world journeying to the British Museum to make attacks at understanding the old markings, no legitimate translations would surface, forcing experts to believe that the position of the rock alongside the riverbed would hold a number of contextual clues for researchers to better understand the strange petroglyphs. In an attempt to piece together the mystery and look at the surrounding area for context, it became obvious to researcher Edmund B. Delabarre that the rock was not the creation of any nearby Native American settlements. A better explanation for the creation of the markings on the rock would soon surface thereafter, when documents surrounding the expedition of Miquel Cort-Real would surface. When analysing the rock more closely, Edmund Delabarre noticed what looked like Latin characters in some areas of the petroglyphs, whereas other markings looked like landmarks and attempted images of surrounding regions. This led him to believe that the rock was a written record of a traveller in the region and not of any of the Native American tribes nearby. When Edmund finally translated the Latin text, he found that the words, when translated into English, read, "I, Miguel Cort-Real, 1511. In this place, by the will of God, I became chief of the Indians." This translation would help to prove Edmund's theories surrounding his traveller claims and believed that the rock was evidence of famed Portuguese explorers having reached New England during the early 1500s. Unfortunately, back in 1963, the entire rock would be moved from its original resting place, and any other artifacts in the region would become destroyed after the residents of the region constructed the coffer dam and flooded the area holding any potentially hidden artifacts to provide additional context to the rock's placement and history. This would prevent any further evidence surrounding the creation of the rock or any nearby inhabitants, leaving the context and history of the rock a complete mystery outside of these small translatable inscriptions. The Unsolved Mystery of Jim Donnelly. Jim Donnelly, a 43-year-old process engineer, vanished without a trace on June 21, 2004. His disappearance remains one of New Zealand's most baffling mysteries, with no conclusive evidence explaining what happened to him. Nearly 2 decades later, his wife, Tracy Donnelly, continues her relentless search for answers, believing that the key to his fate lies within the steel mill where he was last seen. Jim arrived at his workplace, the Glenbrook Steel Mill, as usual that Monday morning. There were no signs that anything was amiss at first. However, he never attended his meeting at 9 in the morning, raising concern among his colleagues. His car remained parked in the mill's lot, untouched, and his wife, Tracy, was unable to reach him. By 6 in the evening, after an entire workday had passed with no sign of him, Jim was officially reported missing. Initially, the theory that Jim had suffered an accident seemed plausible. The steel mill was a hazardous environment, full of dangerous equipment and chemicals. However, as the investigation progressed, this theory gave way to more questions than answers. Despite extensive searches, including a thorough sweep of the mill's premises, no trace of Jim's body was found. There was no clear evidence that he had left the facility, yet no explanation for where he could have gone. In the days leading up to his disappearance, Jim had been acting out of character. He and Tracy had planned a weekend getaway in Auckland, but Jim abruptly cancelled, claiming he had an important meeting. His reasoning made little sense to Tracy. A Saturday night meeting seemed highly unusual, yet Jim refused to provide any details. Adding to the mystery, he rented a suit for the occasion, but no one has ever been able to confirm where he went or who he met that evening. His co-workers also noted his strange behavior on the Monday before he disappeared, further deepening the mystery surrounding his final known hours. The mystery took an even darker turn 5 days after Jim was last seen. Mill workers discovered his hard hat near an acid tank in a restricted area of the facility, an area that had already been searched. The discovery immediately raised suspicions. Why had the hard hat only appeared after nearly a week? The acid tank was drained, revealing some of Jim's personal belongings inside. However, the acid was not strong enough to dissolve a body, ruling out the possibility that Jim had completely disappeared into the chemical solution. His house keys were missing and have never been found. The presence of Jim's belongings in the acid tank raised more questions than answers. Who placed them there? And why was his hard hat left in plain sight near the tank days after he vanished? The hard hat, which could have held valuable forensic evidence, was never tested for fingerprints, a glaring oversight in the investigation. The lack of a thorough forensic examination meant that any potential evidence was lost forever. As the investigation stalled, theories emerged to explain Jim's disappearance. Some speculated that he had suffered a mental breakdown and intentionally vanished. Search and rescue teams considered the possibility that he was hiding, avoiding detection. However, this theory seemed unlikely. Jim had no known history of mental illness, and his sudden disappearance left behind too many unresolved questions. Tracy has never accepted the idea that Jim simply walked away. She remains convinced that the answers to his fate are hidden within the steel mill. If Jim had been harmed, it is possible that those responsible took steps to cover their tracks. The suspicious placement of his belongings and the lack of evidence indicating he left the facility suggest foul play. However, without a body or any definitive proof, the case remains unsolved. Over the years, Tracy has continued to push for answers, hoping that someone will come forward with new information. Jim's disappearance is not widely known outside of New Zealand, but for those familiar with the case, it remains one of the country's most enduring mysteries. a father of two, vanished without a trace, and nearly 2 decades later, his family is still searching for the truth. The case of Jim Donnelly is a chilling reminder of how a person can disappear in the most inexplicable of circumstances. His wife's belief that the key to the mystery lies within the steel mill is a haunting thought, as it suggests that someone within the facility may know more than they have admitted. With no sightings of Jim beyond the gantry of the mill and no evidence of him leaving, the truth of what happened that day remains locked behind the walls of the very place he worked. To this day, the disappearance of Jim Donnelly remains unsolved. The hard hat and personal belongings found in the acid tank are the only physical traces of his existence that morning. His car remains untouched, his phone left behind, and his last known movements remain a mystery. The question that lingers, unanswered, is what really happened to Jim Donnelly on June 21, 2004. Missing skier mysteriously disappears without a trace, then turns up thousands of miles away without any memory of what happened. Konstantinos Philippidis, known as Danny, was a 49-year-old Toronto firefighter who mysteriously vanished while skiing at Whiteface Mountain in Wilmington, New York, in February 2018. His disappearance sparked a massive search effort involving hundreds of firefighters, state police, and volunteers. 6 days later, he was found alive more than 4,500 kilometers away in Sacramento, California, still wearing his ski gear and with no recollection of how he had traveled across the country. The bizarre case of his vanishing and sudden reappearance remains one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in recent years. On February 7, 2018, Philippidis was enjoying the final day of an annual ski trip with off-duty and retired firefighters. The group had been skiing at Whiteface Mountain, one of the highest peaks in the Adirondacks, known for its dense wooded areas, steep trails, and challenging terrain. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, one of the skiers in the group expressed fatigue and decided to head back, but Philippidis insisted on making one last run down the mountain. His friends waited for him at the lodge, but when a sudden snowstorm hit, visibility worsened. By 4 in the afternoon, the ski lifts had shut down, and Philippidis was still nowhere to be found. His friends waited another 30 minutes before they became concerned and reported him missing. They returned to the lodge where they were staying, hoping he had already made it back, but his car, passport, phone, and ID were all still there. A search operation was immediately launched, with ski patrol, forest rangers, and local authorities scouring the area. As night fell, conditions worsened, making the search difficult, but rescuers remained hopeful. The following day, the search effort expanded. New York State Police, Homeland Security, US border officials, and over 100 Toronto firefighters joined in, determined to locate their missing colleague. Helicopters, drones, and sniffer dogs were deployed to cover the snowy terrain. As days passed, the likelihood of finding Philippidis alive diminished. His wife traveled to Lake Placid, desperate for answers. Over 6 days, an estimated 6,000 people participated in the search. Despite the extensive effort, no trace of him was found. Then, on February 13th, hope was unexpectedly restored. At 9:30 in the morning, Philippidis' wife received a call from an unknown number. When she answered, she was shocked to hear her husband's voice. He told her he was in Sacramento, California, alone and disoriented. She immediately urged him to seek help. He hung up and dialed 911, informing police that he was a missing person. Sacramento police officers arrived at the airport's car rental terminal, where they found Philippidis still dressed in the ski jacket, boots, and helmet he had worn when he went missing 6 days earlier. He appeared confused and disoriented. Along with his ski gear, he was carrying a newly purchased iPhone, a credit card, and $1,000 in cash. He also had a fresh haircut. When questioned, he struggled to recall what had happened, offering only vague details about possibly suffering a head injury and sleeping frequently in a truck during his journey. Authorities transported him to a hospital for evaluation, but doctors found no significant injuries or signs of trauma. Sergeant Sean Hampton of the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department stated that officers interviewed Philippidis extensively and determined he was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. His recollections were hazy, but he mentioned being dropped off in Sacramento the night before and possibly spending the night near Richards Boulevard before making his way to the airport. As news of his discovery spread, speculation ran rampant. Investigators sought information about how he had traveled across the country, but no one came forward with answers. Authorities released a photograph of Philippidis at the airport in hopes of finding someone who had seen him during his 6-day absence. Despite their efforts, the mystery deepened. 6 months later, Philippidis provided his version of events. He believed he had taken a wrong turn while heading back to the lodge and lost consciousness. When he regained awareness, he mistakenly assumed he had arrived at the main ski lodge, only to find it deserted. It was later determined that he likely wandered near the children's ski slope, an area that would have been largely abandoned at the time. Still confused and unable to locate his car, Philippidis flagged down a truck driver who offered him a ride. He remembered little of the journey, but had brief flashes of being sick at a truck stop and learning that they were passing through Utah. He described experiencing an intense headache and extreme fatigue that left him unable to stay awake. Eventually, the truck driver told him they had reached the end of the line in Sacramento before dropping him off. After arriving in Sacramento, Philippidis was still disoriented, but realized he needed to contact his family. With no ID and only a credit card, he withdrew $1,000 in cash and purchased a new iPhone. Struggling to recall his wife's phone number, he searched for information about Whiteface Mountain online. To his shock, he discovered that he was listed as a missing person. Instead of immediately contacting authorities, he spent the night on the streets before finally calling his wife the next morning. To this day, Philippidis' case remains a mystery. The identity of the truck driver has never been confirmed, and no witnesses have come forward to explain how he traveled across the country. The lack of any explanation leaves more questions than answers. Was he suffering from a dissociative episode, or was something more mysterious at play? Despite returning to his family and resuming his life as a firefighter, Philippidis' 6-day journey remains a baffling mystery. His case has intrigued investigators and skeptics alike, as it defies logical explanation. With no concrete evidence or additional witnesses, his inexplicable disappearance and reappearance will likely remain one of the most bizarre unsolved cases in modern history. The mysterious vanishing of Stephanie Stewart. Stephanie Stewart's disappearance remains one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries in Canada. A dedicated fire lookout worker, she spent her summers on the edge of Jasper National Park, a breathtaking yet remote location where she diligently monitored the landscape for signs of fire. Despite her age of 70, Stephanie was in excellent physical condition, an avid outdoorswoman who had even conquered Mount Kilimanjaro the year before. Her passion for nature and commitment to her job made her sudden disappearance in August 2006 all the more baffling. On the evening of August 25, 2006, Stephanie spoke with a relative at 9 in the evening in what would be her last known interaction. The following morning, she failed to check in at her scheduled time, an immediate cause for concern. When further attempts to contact her went unanswered, her colleagues alerted authorities. By 9 in the morning, a search effort was already underway. Given her years of experience and familiarity with the terrain, it seemed unlikely that she had simply wandered off or gotten lost. The circumstances surrounding her vanishing pointed to something far more sinister. A massive search operation was launched, covering hundreds of kilometers by foot, boat, and aircraft. Authorities scoured the rugged landscape, hoping to find any trace of Stephanie, but their efforts turned up nothing. As the days stretched on, investigators began piecing together a disturbing picture. Certain personal items were found to be missing from her lookout post, including 2 pillows, a burgundy bedsheet, a brown Navajo-patterned duvet, and a gold Wittnauer men's watch. These missing items, along with the complete absence of any physical evidence like footprints or signs of a struggle, deepened the mystery. 3 days after Stephanie was reported missing, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, officially stated that her disappearance was suspicious. The idea that she had voluntarily left or succumbed to natural causes seemed increasingly implausible. The remote nature of her lookout station meant that very few people would have had access to her location. If foul play was involved, the perpetrator would have had to navigate difficult terrain and operate undetected. Theories ranged from a random attack to a planned act by someone familiar with her routine. Authorities soon classified the case as a probable homicide. However, Without any physical evidence or eyewitness accounts, the investigation stalled. Despite the government and her union offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to an arrest, no credible leads emerged. The absence of her missing belongings added an eerie element to the case. Were they taken as trophies, or did they hold some significance to the person responsible for her disappearance? Stephanie's case remains open, with investigators still seeking answers. Over the years, speculation has continued to swirl. Some believe she may have encountered an opportunistic predator, while others think she was targeted by someone who knew her. With no signs of forced entry or an apparent struggle, the case defies conventional explanations. For her family, friends, and colleagues, the lack of closure is a lingering wound. Stephanie Stewart's disappearance is a chilling reminder of how even those most prepared for the wilderness can vanish without a trace. The mysterious Highway of Tears. The Highway of Tears is a tragic and haunting stretch of Highway 16 in British Columbia, Canada. Spanning 719 kilometers between Prince George and Prince Rupert, this remote corridor has been the site of numerous crimes, particularly against women, since the highway's completion in 1970. The phrase, Highway of Tears, was first coined in 1998 during a vigil in Terrace, British Columbia, by Florence Natsiel, who reflected on the sorrow of the families who had lost loved ones along the highway. Over the years, this stretch of road has become infamous due to the disappearances of many women, most of whom were Indigenous. The disproportionate number of Indigenous women who have gone missing along the Highway of Tears has drawn attention to the broader issue of violence against Indigenous communities in Canada. Many of these cases remain unsolved, leaving families without answers and communities without justice. The crisis along the highway is closely linked to the Missing Indigenous Women movement, which seeks to raise awareness about the failures that have allowed these crimes to continue largely unchecked. One of the factors contributing to the danger of the highway is its isolation. The vast, unpopulated stretches make it an easy place for predators to target vulnerable individuals, particularly those who rely on hitchhiking due to a lack of affordable transportation. Many communities along the route have limited access to public transit, leaving residents, especially young women, with little choice but to accept rides from strangers. This has made them easy targets for perpetrators who take advantage of the remoteness of the highway. The Canadian government and law enforcement agencies have faced significant criticism for their handling of the disappearances along the Highway of Tears. For decades, Indigenous families and activists have called for more thorough investigations and better resources to protect vulnerable women travelling along the route. In many cases, reports of missing Indigenous women were not taken seriously, and law enforcement was slow to respond. The lack of urgency in addressing these crimes has been widely condemned as a failure of the justice system. Several initiatives have been launched to address the crisis. In 2006, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police began an investigation focused on cases along the Highway of Tears that fit a specific pattern. The project originally investigated 9 cases, but later expanded to include 18. While some progress has been made, many of the cases remain unresolved. Additionally, the National Inquiry into Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, launched in 2016, highlighted the neglect that has contributed to the ongoing crisis. Community-driven efforts have also played a crucial role in raising awareness and demanding justice. Families of the victims have organized marches, vigils, and awareness campaigns to keep the memory of their loved ones alive and to pressure authorities to take action. Grassroots organizations have worked to provide support for Indigenous women and their families, offering resources such as safe transportation options and emergency shelters. Despite these efforts, the Highway of Tears remains a dangerous place. The need for improved infrastructure, including better transportation options and increased law enforcement presence, is critical in preventing further tragedies. Many advocates argue that the government must take more substantial steps to address the root causes of why this is happening against Indigenous women, including poverty and lack of access to essential services. The Highway of Tears stands as a grim symbol of the ongoing violence against Indigenous women in Canada. The stories of the victims and their families serve as a painful reminder of the injustices that continue to exist. The mystery of David Stone. David Lawrence Stone was a 29-year-old stock market analyst from La Jolla, California, whose mysterious disappearance and tragic fate continue to intrigue those who study unexplained cases. He was a man known to seek spiritual guidance through the New Age movement, which emphasizes self-discovery and harmony of the mind, body, and spirit. This aspect of his life became a crucial element in the investigation after he vanished, leaving behind cryptic clues in the vast New Mexico desert. Stone had a history of anger and control issues, and in the days leading up to his disappearance, these struggles became more pronounced. Just 3 days before Halloween in 1988, he had a significant emotional outburst, after which he told his family and friends that he needed time to clear his mind. Without offering any details about his plans, he got into his car on Halloween morning and drove away, leaving his loved ones uncertain of his destination or intentions. What followed was a strange journey that led him deep into the remote deserts of Arizona and New Mexico, where his final days became the subject of much speculation. The investigation into his disappearance was conducted by Sheriff Bill Cavalier, who pieced together Stone's movements based on witness accounts and the evidence he left behind. Stone was last seen walking into the desert, about 145 miles east of Tucson, Arizona, heading toward the New Mexico border. His journey took him so far that he eventually reached a rural area of New Mexico, where he was spotted by a local farmer. The farmer found it odd to see a lone traveler walking through such an isolated region and approached Stone to ask what he was doing. Stone's response was cryptic. He told the farmer that he was searching for the beast. Other witnesses in the area also reported seeing him wandering alone, muttering to himself, and exhibiting strange behavior. His actions suggested that he was either deeply immersed in a spiritual quest or experiencing a psychological episode. He left behind a trail of clues that reinforced the idea that he may have been on what New Age practitioners call a vision quest, a personal journey meant to bring enlightenment or spiritual awakening. On November 5th, authorities found Stone's car abandoned along an empty stretch of New Mexico Highway 80, south of Road Forks. The circumstances surrounding his abandoned vehicle were strange, but they became even more puzzling when investigators found a series of symbols and objects nearby. Among these clues was a carefully arranged pyramid of rocks encircled by a triangle. Stone's watch and 2 quarters were also found nearby. Later, searchers discovered a sequence of Fibonacci numbers written in the sand, a mathematical pattern frequently used by stock market analysts. However, Stone had made an apparent mistake in the sequence, writing 18 instead of 21, a detail that some believe was a reference to his football jersey number from his college years. Despite extensive search efforts, no trace of Stone himself was found at the time, and his family was left to wonder what had become of him. His disappearance remained an unsolved mystery for nearly 4 years, during which speculation ran wild. Some believed he had succumbed to the harsh desert conditions, while others suggested he may have staged his disappearance as part of a larger spiritual journey. In February of 1992, the mystery took a tragic turn when Stone's skeletal remains were discovered in the desert near Granite Gap, New Mexico, not far from where his abandoned car and cryptic clues had been found years earlier. His identity was confirmed through medical records, but no evidence of foul play was detected. The cause of his passing remains unknown, as the elements had long since erased any conclusive forensic evidence. The circumstances surrounding Stone's disappearance and passing remain one of the most perplexing mysteries of its kind. Why did he leave behind such strange clues? His reference to searching for the beast and his erratic behavior suggest that he may have been battling something internally, whether it was a personal demon or a spiritual pursuit gone too far. Even though his remains were eventually found, many questions about his final days remain unanswered. Did he simply get lost and succumb to the elements? Or did his journey into the desert have a deeper, more symbolic meaning known only to him? The eerie clues he left behind continue to fuel speculation about his state of mind and what he may have been seeking in the remote New Mexico wilderness. To this day, the story of David Lawrence Stone is a chilling reminder of how easily someone can disappear, even in an age of modern technology and widespread communication. His case stands as one of the more mysterious disappearances, leaving behind an unsettling mystery that remains open-ended, with no clear answers to the many questions surrounding his fate. The mysterious disappearance of Carl Herbert Landers from Mount Shasta. Carl Herbert Landers, a 69-year-old man from Orinda, California, set out on May 21, 1999, with the goal of summiting Mount Shasta, a towering peak located north of Sacramento. Accompanied by two close friends, Milton Gaines and Barry Gilmore, both members of the Orinda Roadrunners, Landers was prepared for a challenging but rewarding climb. He was an experienced outdoorsman and had trained for the expedition, making his sudden and complete disappearance all the more baffling. Landers and his friends camped at Lake Helen, an 8,800-foot elevation site commonly used by climbers attempting to summit Mount Shasta. The group planned to take a gradual approach, acclimating themselves to the altitude before making their final push to the summit. However, Landers began to feel unwell at the camp. His two companions suggested that he take an early start on the hike while they caught up with him later. They assumed he would move at a slower pace due to his condition, giving them time to overtake him before reaching the summit. That was the last time anyone ever saw him. When Landers failed to return to base camp or show any signs of making contact, concern quickly grew. His two friends began searching for him but found no indication of where he had gone. When he did not reappear, local authorities were contacted and a full-scale search operation was launched. Despite the swift response, no evidence of Landers' whereabouts could be found. The search effort was extensive, involving professional mountain rescue teams and experienced searchers who were familiar with Mount Shasta's terrain. The operation was led by veteran search and rescue expert Grizz Adams, who had over 20 years of experience in locating missing hikers. Multiple agencies participated, including the U.S. Forest Service, local sheriff's offices, and volunteer groups. A California Highway Patrol helicopter, equipped with an infrared sensing device, was deployed to scan the rugged landscape for any heat signatures that might indicate Landers' location. Two National Guard helicopters were also brought in to assist in covering the vast and treacherous terrain. Searchers combed through trails, cliffs, and crevices, following every possible lead. They scoured the likely paths Landers would have taken, checked dangerous fall zones, and inspected creeks and snowfields. Volunteers and fellow hikers joined the search, hoping to find any clue that might explain what happened to him. Despite these exhaustive efforts, no trace of Landers was ever found. There were no footprints, discarded items, or any signs that he had wandered off the main trail. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Landers' disappearance remains one of the most perplexing mysteries associated with Mount Shasta. The region has long been the subject of folklore and strange occurrences, with reports of unexplained disappearances dating back decades. Some speculate that Mount Shasta's unpredictable weather conditions or hidden crevasses could have swallowed Landers, but given the extensive search efforts, it remains unclear why no evidence was ever discovered. His case bears eerie similarities to the disappearance of John Nezza, an 80-year-old climber who vanished on Mount Shasta on July 17, 1965. Nezza was a seasoned climber who had summited the mountain over 40 times. On the day he disappeared, he left most of his gear behind at the Sierra Club cabin at Horse Camp, intending to complete what should have been a routine climb. Last seen near Lake Helen, the same area where Landers was last spotted, Nezza disappeared without a trace. Searchers at the time followed reports of buzzards circling the Red Banks area above Lake Helen, believing they might be scavenging remains, but nothing was ever found. Despite similarities between their disappearances, no concrete connection has been established between Landers and Nezza's cases. Both men were experienced climbers and were last seen in the same general area, yet no definitive explanation exists for what happened to them. Some believe that the high-altitude environment and treacherous terrain of Mount Shasta may conceal dangers that make recovery efforts nearly impossible. Others suggest that disorientation or altitude sickness could have played a role, leading them to wander into inaccessible regions of the mountain. Over the years, Mount Shasta has developed a reputation for unusual disappearances, leading to speculation beyond natural causes. Some theories involve hidden underground caves, sudden weather changes, or even supernatural elements that have long been associated with the mountain. While such ideas remain speculative, the complete lack of physical evidence in cases like Landers' disappearance fuels the mystery. Even after 25 years, not a single clue has surfaced regarding what happened to Landers. His family and friends have been left without answers, and those who participated in the search remain haunted by the fact that an experienced hiker could disappear so completely despite an extensive and immediate search effort. To this day, Carl Landers' disappearance remains one of the most baffling cases in Mount Shasta's history. It serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the unknown forces that sometimes surround those who venture into the wilderness. Despite headlines, the Jack the Ripper mystery has not been solved. An old news story has recently resurfaced on social media, gaining millions of views in recent days. Various news outlets have revisited a 2014 claim that Jack the Ripper had been conclusively identified as a Polish barber named Aaron Kosminski. At the time, Kosminski was a 23-year-old resident of Whitechapel, the area in which the incidents occurred. Author Russell Edwards and his team of researchers put forward this claim, insisting that DNA evidence supports their conclusion. However, critics have long argued that the supposed evidence is insufficient to close the case, and significant doubts remain. The Jack the Ripper murders have long been one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. On September 30th, 1888, Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square by a City of London police officer. Earlier that same evening, another woman, 44-year-old Elizabeth Stride, had been slain. The incidents, part of a string of gruesome slayings in London's East End, were attributed to an unknown individual who came to be known as Jack the Ripper. Russell Edwards claims that a silk shawl discovered near Eddowes' body provides the evidence needed to identify the individual responsible. However, no historical police reports mention a shawl being found at the crime scene. Edwards acquired the item at an auction in 2007, where it was sold by David Melville Hayes, a descendant of Acting Sergeant Amos Simpson. According to Melville Hayes, his ancestor had been at the crime scene and had taken the shawl home for his wife, a dressmaker. The shawl allegedly remained in the family's possession for over a century, never washed or disturbed. Edwards suggests that the shawl's floral pattern is of significance, as it features Michaelmas daisies. He ties this to the religious observance of Michaelmas, which falls on September 29th in Western Christian calendars and November 8th in Eastern traditions. These dates coincide with the final Jack the Ripper cases. However, this connection remains speculative at best and has not been widely accepted as proof of the shawl's authenticity. The notion of Aaron Kosminski as a suspect is not new. In 1894, Assistant Chief Constable Sir Melville Macnaughton referred to a Polish man named Kosminski as a potential suspect in an internal police memo. This name was later mentioned by other senior officers, including Assistant Commissioner Sir Robert Anderson and Chief Inspector Donald Swanson. According to Swanson, Kosminski had been under surveillance in 1891 and was later committed to Colney Hatch Asylum. However, Swanson's notes claim that Kosminski passed away shortly after being institutionalized, whereas Aaron Kosminski lived until 1919. Notably, none of the original police reports ever referred to the first name Aaron. It was only in 1987 that researcher Martin Fido identified Aaron Kosminski as a likely candidate by examining asylum records. The historical Kosminski suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and was described as largely harmless. His recorded acts of violence were limited to threatening his sister with a knife and brandishing a chair at an asylum attendant. Furthermore, he primarily spoke Yiddish, raising questions about whether he could have lured English-speaking victims into secluded areas. The DNA analysis that Edwards' team conducted has been widely disputed. Scientist Jari Luolainen claimed that mitochondrial DNA from the shawl matched descendants of both Catherine Eddowes and Aaron Kosminski. However, critics argue that he made a fundamental error when using a DNA database to calculate the probability of a match. If the mistake is as serious as suggested, then it invalidates the results, meaning the DNA could belong to virtually anyone. Skepticism surrounding the validity of the shawl as a crime scene artifact further undermines the findings. Without verifiable evidence linking the shawl to Eddowes, the entire premise of Edwards' argument collapses. Additionally, forensic experts have pointed out that DNA degrades over time, particularly on fabric that has not been stored in controlled conditions. Given that the shawl is said to have remained unwashed for more than a century, the likelihood of any conclusive DNA evidence remaining intact is highly questionable. In 2019, Luolainen and fellow scientist David Miller finally published their findings in the Journal of Forensic Sciences. While this lent the research an air of credibility, forensic experts quickly pointed out flaws in the methodology. The study did not include key data, such as control tests or comparisons with contamination sources. As a result, the claims made about the DNA evidence remain controversial and widely disputed within the scientific community. Beyond the technical errors in the DNA analysis, the entire case against Kosminski relies on circumstantial evidence. While he was a contemporary suspect and did live in Whitechapel, there is no direct proof tying him to the cases. The theory that he was responsible is based largely on police suspicions from the time, many of which were recorded years after the events took place. Given the lack of physical evidence, as well as inconsistencies in the timeline of his institutionalization, there is no definitive reason to conclude that he was Jack the Ripper. The resurgence of this news story in recent days has reignited public interest in the mystery, but it does not bring us any closer to solving the case. Social media has played a key role in spreading the claim that Kosminski was conclusively identified, despite the ongoing debates among historians, forensic scientists, and ripperologists. Many people encountering the story for the first time may believe that the case has been solved, when, in reality, it remains as open-ended as ever. The legend of Jack the Ripper continues to endure because of the mystery that surrounds them. Over a century later, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains unknown, and while Aaron Kosminski is a plausible suspect, the evidence against him remains circumstantial at best. Until concrete proof emerges, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Mysterious dashcam footage shows a police officer's encounter with an alleged witch. Officer Malik was patrolling a dark, deserted road when his police dashcam captured something eerie and unexplainable. In the middle of the dirt track, illuminated by his headlights, stood a mysterious woman. She was alone, her figure barely visible in the dim light, standing before a small flickering fire. What made the footage even more unsettling was the way she raised her arms above the flames in a slow, deliberate motion, as if performing a ritual. The sight sent a shiver down Officer Malik's spine, and the video has since left millions of viewers disturbed. Speculation quickly spread across social media, with many believing the woman was practicing witchcraft or some kind of occult ritual. Others suggested she might have been involved in something sinister, though no conclusive evidence has surfaced. The footage offers no answers, only an unnerving glimpse into an inexplicable moment captured on camera. To this day, no one knows who the woman was or what she was doing in the dead of night, alone in the middle of nowhere. The mystery remains unsolved, leaving viewers to wonder whether Officer Malik had stumbled upon something truly supernatural or simply an eerie coincidence. The mystery of Cindy Song. Hyunjong Cindy Song was a senior college student at Pennsylvania State University when she went missing. On Halloween of 2001, she attended a costume party with two of her friends dressed as a bunny. The three stayed at the party until 2 a.m, stopping at a friend's house to play video games before going home. At 4 a.m, Cindy's friends dropped her off at her apartment. She was never seen again after that. Upon conducting a search of her apartment, it was confirmed that there was no sign of forced entry or struggle. Her school backpack and mobile phone were all found in the apartment. Her purse, containing credit cards and her driver's license, however, was missing. Police believed Song was still wearing her costume when she left the apartment because it, too, was not found. A phone analysis was conducted, revealing no inbound or outbound calls, messages, or emails, adding to the confusion and lack of evidence leading to any suspects. Tickets to a concert and a printed receipt for a computer were both found in her apartment, providing evidence that she was making future plans that did not involve running away or disappearing. According to her friends and family, there was no evidence that Song was feeling down, unhappy, or intending to run away. She was always considered upbeat, friendly, and outgoing, including on the night that she vanished. The surrounding wooded areas were also searched, but revealed nothing linked to the case. It is thought that while on her way to a 24-hour supermarket, Song was taken either on the way or at the location. Others believe that she may have left her apartment with someone close to her that she trusted, and her life was taken. Adding to the mystery and confusion, a woman of a similar description was later seen being forced into a car by a man in Philadelphia, 200 miles away from her apartment. It was reported that she was screaming and resisting, crying for help, but finding none. The man remains a possible suspect, although police do not know who he is. The man has still not been found. A few more suspects were discovered about 2 years later, in 2003, including alleged Hugo Selensky. A co-defendant in his case told police that he and an accomplice, Michael Kakowski, had taken the life of a woman from Pennsylvania State College that matched Song's description, although nothing was ever confirmed. The report led authorities to 5 bodies, which were all DNA tested for identification. None of them, however, were found to be Song. Even recently, in 2014, 7 more bodies were discovered on Zelensky's property. Again, authorities hoped that perhaps Song's body would be found and the case would be solved. However, her body was not one of those and still has never been found. This case remains unsolved, as no new evidence has surfaced regarding what may have happened to Song after that Halloween night. The mysterious disappearance of Trevor Deely. The disappearance of Trevor Deely remains one of Dublin's most perplexing mysteries. In the early hours of December 8th in the year 2000, the 22-year-old vanished without a trace after leaving his workplace. Despite extensive investigations, media coverage, and public appeals, his fate remains unknown. Trevor was last seen on CCTV walking along Baggot Street Bridge, heading towards Haddington Road at approximately 4 a.m. That night, he had attended a Christmas party with colleagues, celebrating the holiday season. His sudden disappearance, just weeks before Christmas, led to one of the most publicised missing person searches in Ireland's history. Despite the efforts of his family, authorities, and well-meaning strangers, no definitive evidence has surfaced to explain what happened after he left the CCTV camera's view. His brother, Mark Deely, recalled how, in the years following Trevor's disappearance, people approached him with comforting words, suggesting Trevor was in a better place. By December 2014, 14 years had passed since he went missing, and an age progression image was released to the public, speculating what Trevor might look like. His father, Michael Deely, participated in a press conference organised by the Gardaí, later sharing the video online. During the appeal, he described the family's ordeal as an ongoing nightmare, stating that they would not give up until they uncovered the truth. Trevor worked in information technology, a field he reportedly enjoyed. His mother, too traumatized to speak publicly about his disappearance, expressed gratitude to her friends at the Naas Tennis Club for their ongoing support. Trevor had grown up in Naas, a town where he was well known. He was over 6 feet tall, had reddish blonde hair, and walked with his arms straight down at his sides. While he had a keen interest in math, he was neither particularly athletic nor highly academic compared to his older siblings. Like many young adults, Trevor struggled with career direction after school. He briefly attended Waterford Institute of Technology to study business while working part-time, but left in his second year. With guidance from his sister Michelle, he found a computer course in Dublin, which he excelled at. He took to the subject immediately, earning 3 job offers upon completing his studies. He sought his father's advice on which to accept and ultimately joined Bank of Ireland Asset Management in May 1999. Trevor had a close-knit group of friends, including childhood companion Glenn Cullen and fellow Naas native Conlath Lunan. Together, they frequented bars and clubs in their 20s, preferring Smithwick's beer and spending time at their local, Thomas Fletcher's. Despite their nights out, they never engaged in excessive partying. They kept in touch using their Nokia phones, as email was not yet widespread. Glenn worked as a flight attendant for Aer Lingus, traveling on long-haul flights to Los Angeles and New York. He secured a heavily discounted flight for Trevor, listing him on his Cara discount pass. Shortly before Trevor's disappearance, he had taken advantage of this and traveled to Anchorage, Alaska, to visit a woman he had met in Dublin that summer. Glenn last saw Trevor in late November 2000 when he was passing through customs at Dublin Airport en route to Alaska. The Bank of Ireland Christmas party took place on December 7th, with celebrations beginning at Copperface Jack's before moving to the Hilton Hotel. Trevor's sister had been emailing him about Christmas and gifts, even purchasing a blue Ralph Lauren shirt for him that weekend, which she still keeps. That night, Glenn and Conlath were out in Naas, and Trevor attempted to call Glenn. Due to the background noise of the party, Glenn did not hear the call and later tried to return it without success. The two never managed to have a proper conversation. After leaving the Hilton, Trevor and others headed to Buck Whaley's nightclub. The night was chaotic due to heavy rain and a taxi strike, which complicated investigations later. Trevor often walked to work and lived in an apartment in Ballsbridge, but the downpour would have made his journey home difficult. Before leaving his office, he grabbed a company golf umbrella and ventured back into the stormy night. Back in Naas, Glenn was asleep with his phone charging in the kitchen. The next morning, he discovered a voicemail from Trevor, left around 4 in the morning. Unfortunately, he deleted it after listening to it. The officers never obtained the message, missing what could have been crucial evidence. Trevor's final known movements were captured on a Bank of Ireland security camera at Baggot Street Bridge. He appeared partially obscured by his umbrella, walking alone. His friends and family later tracked down this footage, knowing it was essential to the case. The footage was saved just in time before the bank's 28-day recording cycle would have erased it. By morning, the reality of Trevor's disappearance set in. His mother received the first call informing her that he had not arrived at work. Initially, she was not alarmed, but as more time passed, concern grew. She contacted Trevor's friends, but none had seen him since the night before. His father, Michael, visited his apartment, but there was no answer at the door. As the search intensified, thousands of flyers were distributed, and posters with Trevor's face were displayed throughout Dublin and Naas. His family and friends knocked on doors, visited clubs and restaurants, and checked with the homeless community, desperately seeking information. They reviewed every possible route Trevor might have taken home, retracing his steps repeatedly. The CCTV footage remains the last known sighting of Trevor Deely. Despite continued police investigations and renewed appeals, no credible explanation for his disappearance has emerged. His case remains one of Dublin's most enduring mysteries, leaving his family and friends without closure. The mystery of Spring-Heeled Jack. Spring-Heeled Jack is one of the most intriguing and mysterious figures in British folklore, a sinister entity that reportedly terrorized the streets of London and beyond during the 19th century. His legend is rooted in tales of a supernatural being with remarkable physical abilities, striking fear into those who encountered him. With glowing red eyes, sharp claws, and an inhuman ability to leap great distances, he became a source of widespread panic and speculation. Despite numerous sightings and detailed accounts, his true identity was never uncovered, leaving his existence a chilling mystery. The first known accounts of Spring-Heeled Jack date back to 1837, when reports surfaced of a strange figure attacking people in and around London. One of the most well-documented early incidents involved a young woman named Mary Stevens, who claimed to have been assaulted by a tall, thin man with clawed hands while walking through Clapham Common. The attacker fled, leaping away effortlessly into the night. Shortly afterward, a similar figure was seen near her home, bounding over rooftops and terrifying residents. Word of these encounters spread quickly, and it wasn't long before the press and the public dubbed the entity Spring-Heeled Jack, due to his alleged ability to make unnatural jumps. Descriptions of Spring-Heeled Jack varied, but many witnesses described a devilish figure with glowing eyes, claw-like hands, and sharp metallic talons. Some accounts claimed he had bat-like wings or a dark cloak, while others insisted he wore a tight-fitting suit, resembling a spectre more than a man. His face was often said to be grotesque, sometimes with an eerie, skull-like appearance. One of his most terrifying traits was his supposed ability to breathe blue and white flames, leaving victims temporarily blinded and disoriented. The panic surrounding Spring-Heeled Jack reached new heights in 1838 when 2 high-profile attacks took place in London. One victim, Jane Alsop, recounted a harrowing experience in which a cloaked figure knocked on her door, claiming to be a police officer. When she opened it, he pounced on her, tearing at her clothes with his claws and spewing flames from his mouth. Jane's screams alerted her family, and the attacker vanished into the darkness with impossible speed. Another woman, Lucy Scales, reported a similar encounter in which she was temporarily blinded by blue flames before her assailant disappeared. These reports prompted an official investigation, but despite multiple witnesses and mounting fear, authorities were unable to identify or apprehend the elusive figure. Theories about Spring-Heeled Jack's origins and abilities abound. Some believe he was a real man, a prankster or criminal using clever disguises, theatrical tricks, and mechanical devices to create the illusion of supernatural powers. A popular theory suggests he was a nobleman named Henry de la Poer Beresford, the Marquess of Waterford, who was known for his wild behaviour and interest in frightening people for sport. Others speculate that he was an early example of an urban legend, with stories becoming increasingly exaggerated over time as fear took hold of the public imagination. Despite attempts to explain his existence, sightings of spring-heeled Jack continued for decades. Reports emerged from across England, including places like Liverpool and Sheffield, describing encounters with a leaping figure with clawed hands and glowing eyes. In some instances, he was seen jumping impossibly high fences, escaping capture effortlessly. Even as late as the early 20th century, stories of a strange leaping figure persisted, though they became less frequent over time. One of the most compelling aspects of spring-heeled Jack's legend is how deeply it embedded itself in Victorian society. At a time when ghost stories and tales of the supernatural were widely believed, his legend took on a life of its own, shaping public fears and inspiring literature. Some have compared him to figures like Jack the Ripper, another infamous London-based legend whose identity remains unknown. However, unlike Jack the Ripper, spring-heeled Jack's actions seem to be more about terrorizing his victims rather than outright harming them. In modern times, spring-heeled Jack has become a cultural icon, appearing in novels, television shows, and comic books. His story has been reinterpreted in various ways, sometimes portraying him as a villain and, in other cases, a misunderstood anti-hero. The mystery surrounding him continues to capture the imagination of those who study folklore and unexplained phenomena. Whether spring-heeled Jack was a real individual with advanced physical abilities, an elaborate hoax perpetrated over time, or a genuine supernatural entity, his legend has endured for nearly 2 centuries. His story remains one of England's most bizarre and unsettling mysteries, a reminder of how fear and speculation can transform a local legend into an enduring mystery that refuses to be forgotten. The mysterious Palper Flat Mountain. The Palper Flat Mountain, along with the Palper Lines or Palper geoglyphs, is a mysterious site located in the Palper province of Peru. It consists of a series of large-scale geoglyphs, which are huge designs or motifs made by removing the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the surface of the ground. The designs are formed by the exposure of the lighter-colored soil underneath and can range in size from a few feet to over 500 feet in length. However, seen as one of the most convincing pieces of evidence for ancient civilizations having once possessed advanced technologies is that of the archaeological discovery of the Palper Flat Mountain. Theorists have often posited that perhaps the gods of ancient cultures that supposedly descended from the stars were not actually gods, but rather advanced life forms. This would make sense given the fact that many cultures directly write about how the gods came from the stars or on machines that could fly. Interestingly, various civilizations talk about ancient beings descending from the sky, with amateur researchers saying that this evidence is documented across various different cultures and civilizations. Interestingly enough, the ancient Nazca tribes also seem to hold a similar belief to their religion, and the evidence in the area only shows this further, that it could very well be the case. As many different pilots flew over the area of the ancient tribes, a surprising discovery was made in regards to what they could see from the sky. Lines drawn out in the desert were made visible from the sky that appeared to be created over many miles of distance. In fact, the lines were detailed images and navigation trails that would have helped possible aircraft find areas to land and travel to. This was made only more interesting, as located nearby these large creations is that of the Palper Flat Mountain. Located on the Palper Flat Mountain is a completely flat mountainside, as if flattened down by vast ancient technologies. This is made more peculiar, as it seems to be the only flat mountain in the region, with a top that looks artificial cut from its base. Located on this flat top are lines and creations that pilots have often mistaken for a landing strip for aircraft. This has led many of the ancient theorist communities to believe that perhaps the tribe helped their gods by creating these lines in the sand that were only visible from the skies. These lines could be used similar to that as modern-day concrete arrows used to point towards landing strips and other aviation-important signals. This would be a plausible explanation, as the lines on the ground are not visible and would not be able to be used religiously or for any other important purpose without the ability to see it from the sky. Interestingly enough, the lines seem to be very old and ancient and provide proof as to the tribe's advanced knowledge in geometry in order to create massive images in the sand that they could never see themselves. Additionally, these pieces appear to be images of things the tribes held with utmost importance, such as that of different kinds of animal life and strange symbols that are nearly impossible to understand. The palpageoglyphs are thought to have been created by the Paracas and Nazca cultures, who lived in the region between 500 BCE and 500 CE. The designs depict various animals, including birds, monkeys, spiders, and lizards, as well as geometric shapes and human-like figures. Some of the designs are so large that they can only be seen from the air, which has led to much speculation about their purpose and origin. One of the most intriguing aspects of the palpageoglyphs is their alignment with the celestial bodies. Many of the designs are oriented towards the sun, moon, and stars, suggesting that they may have been used for astronomical purposes. Some researchers have even proposed that the designs represent a giant star map that was used for navigation or as a calendar. Despite their apparent significance, the palpageoglyphs have received relatively little attention compared to their more famous neighbours, the Nazca lines. This is partly due to their location in a more remote and difficult-to-access area, as well as their smaller size and less impressive appearance from ground level. Nonetheless, the palpageoglyphs remain a fascinating and mysterious sight that continues to intrigue archaeologists, historians, and enthusiasts alike. The Pyramid and the Lost Labyrinth of Hawara. The magnificent structure known as the Pyramid of Hawara is credited to Pharaoh Amenemhat III, who ruled during the 12th dynasty in ancient Egypt. Situated approximately 9 kilometers to the east of the Fayum oasis, this architectural marvel stands as a testament to the advanced civilization and architectural prowess of the ancient Egyptians. Amenemhat III ascended to the throne as the 6th pharaoh during the 12th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. The Black Pyramid, known as the Hawara Pyramid, deviates from the typical construction style of the famous Giza pyramids. Constructed using brick stones and covered with a limestone coating, the Pyramid of Hawara stands out due to its unique materials and design approach. Its distinct characteristics set it apart as a significant architectural marvel in ancient Egypt. The Pyramid of Hawara, in its original state, stood as a grand monument soaring up to a height of 58 meters. Featuring a remarkable symmetry, each side of its colossal base spanned approximately 100 meters. This architectural marvel, located in Egypt, captivates visitors with its sheer size and historical significance. The primary significance of this archaeological site does not solely lie in the pyramid's structure. Beneath the seemingly ordinary sands lies a hidden gem that has the potential to be deemed as one of the most pioneering architectural complexes in Egypt, the mysterious Labyrinth of Hawara. In 2008, a significant archaeological revelation unveiled the existence of what was referred to as a missing labyrinth concealed below the foundations of the renowned Hawara Pyramid. Herodotus, the renowned ancient historian, delved into the depths of awe and wonder in his renowned book when he encountered a remarkable megalithic construction that left him utterly perplexed. Herodotus, a renowned historian, along with ancient Egyptian folklore, asserted that the strange construction boasted an abundance of chambers, shrouded in mystery and intrigue. For centuries, these fabled rooms remained the subject of skepticism and disbelief, mere figments of imagination, until their tangible existence was unveiled through archaeological excavation. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt, much like Göbekli Tepe, stands out as an extraordinary ancient site waiting to be unearthed. This intriguing historical location harbors immense secrets from the past that are yet to be revealed through excavation. Centuries ago, historical accounts penned by renowned figures like Strabo and Herodotus shed light on a mysterious subterranean network of interlinked chambers. These ancient scholars not only documented, but also physically explored and narrated the tales of the famed labyrinth, a remarkable structure that eventually faded away. The subterranean construction was characterized as a remarkable and intricate system with the potential to unlock humanity's past, shedding light on mysterious civilizations and powerful empires that governed the world long before the commonly recognized inception of recorded history. This hidden network of passages and chambers is believed to contain significant clues and revelations that could revolutionize our understanding of the ancient world. The maze is located slightly elevated from the Moiris Lake and almost directly across from the area known as the City of Crocodiles. This intricate network of paths and corridors offers a challenging journey for those who venture through its twists and turns. If one were to compare the construction and grandeur of Greek buildings and the magnitude of their endeavors, they would pale in comparison to the intricacy and magnificence of this labyrinth. The sheer scale and complexity of this architectural marvel far surpass the efforts and costs involved in building structures like the pyramids. Even the pyramids, which are renowned for their grandeur and historical significance, are insurmountable in their awe-inspiring presence. Each pyramid alone stands as a testament to the monumental achievements of the Greeks, yet the labyrinth eclipses even these iconic structures in terms of sheer amazement and magnitude. Upon stepping into the revered enclosure, visitors were greeted by a grand temple, encompassed by 40 columns on each side. The structure boasted a remarkable roof, crafted from a single intricately carved stone, featuring ornate panels and adorned with exquisite paintings. Within this edifice were depictions commemorating the origins of every king, alongside representations of the temples and ceremonies conducted within, all masterfully depicted in paintings of exceptional beauty. This sacred space not only served as a tribute to royalty and religious practices, but also stood as a testament to the skilled artistry and reverence for tradition present in the ancient culture. The structure mentioned consists of 12 enclosed courts with gates positioned opposite each other. There are 6 courts on the north side and 6 on the south side, interconnected seamlessly, surrounded by a common wall encompassing all the courts externally. Additionally, the structure is equipped with 2 types of chambers, one set located underground and the other situated above ground level. In total, there are 3,000 chambers, evenly distributed with 1,500 chambers of each type. The meticulous design of the layout aims to provide a symmetrical and organized arrangement, emphasizing a balanced distribution of courts and chambers to facilitate efficient navigation and functionality within the structure. The chambers located above ground were personally witnessed by us. However, the underground chambers were only known to us through hearsay. Wandering through the interconnected chambers and navigating the intricately designed courts was a captivating experience that never failed to evoke a sense of wonder. The elaborate decorations of the passages and the courts provided a constant source of amazement as people journeyed from one court to the chambers, moving through grand colonnades and then transitioning to various other rooms, only to find themselves back in the chambers leading to yet more courts. The transitions between these different spaces, adorned with exquisite embellishments, created an immersive journey filled with architectural beauty and historical significance. In the year 2008, a team of researchers hailing from Belgium and Egypt, known as the Mataha expedition, embarked on a journey to delve into the mysterious lore surrounding an underground complex. With the utilization of advanced ground-penetrating technology, they sought to unlock the secrets buried beneath the surface. Their primary objective was to shed light on the strange legend that had intrigued many for ages. The collaborative venture involving Belgian and Egyptian researchers successfully validated the existence of an underground temple located in close proximity to the Hawara pyramid, solidifying their findings with concrete evidence. Flinders Petrie, a prominent figure in the field of Egyptology, came across the structure that has been a recent discovery. However, this finding dates back to the 1800s when he unearthed the megalithic remnants associated with it. Petrie and his expedition refrained from excavating a potential extraordinary find under the belief that the ancient structure was dismantled in antiquity to construct the neighboring city of Shedit, utilizing its materials. This decision deprived them of the opportunity to uncover what might have been one of their most remarkable discoveries. A comprehensive analysis of the research outcomes was presented and deliberated upon during a prominent public discourse held at the University of Ghent in Belgium. Following the discovery, the dissemination of the findings was halted as the Secretary-General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities in Egypt imposed restrictions on any additional disclosures concerning the finding, attributing it to national security measures. This action prevented the public from accessing any further information regarding the discovery, effectively putting a stop to the communication process in its entirety. Mr. Van Kerkwijk, hailing from Belgium, has pointed out that the revelation of this significant discovery has been intentionally concealed. Presently, the remarkable possibilities held by this site are gradually but inevitably declining due to a combination of governmental inactivity and the rising water table in the surrounding region. The lack of intervention by authorities paired with the detrimental impact of the escalating water levels, is leading to the gradual deterioration of this valuable site. The current status requires excavation of the framework. Rabbit hole leads to a 700-year-old secret Knights Templar cave network. Venturing into what appears to be a humble rabbit hole reveals access to a mesmerizing labyrinth of underground caves with a historical legacy spanning over 7 centuries. Beneath a farmer's field in Shropshire lie concealed caves, mere meters below the surface, which served as retreats for the adherents of the Knights Templar. This esteemed medieval religious faction, renowned for their active involvement in the Crusades, utilized these subterranean chambers for various purposes, likely ranging from rituals to strategic planning. The valor and righteousness attributed to the knights who safeguarded Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land are often glorified. Founded during the tumultuous Dark Ages, the order was established with a significant historical backdrop, finding its home on the prestigious Temple Mount, situated above the remains of the iconic King Solomon's Temple in the sacred city of Jerusalem. The organization garnered a surge in membership from various regions across Europe until its dissolution by Pope Clement V in 1312. Despite its official disbandment, there persists a persistent belief among certain individuals that the knights of this order clandestinely went into hiding, harboring a confidential revelation capable of shaking the foundations of the Catholic Church to this very day. Over time, the Knights Templar amassed vast wealth and power, thanks in part to generous donations from nobility and the Church. Their financial holdings and influence extended across Europe, making them a formidable force in both secular and religious affairs. However, their wealth also made them the target of envy and suspicion, particularly from monarchs and rival factions. The Templars were rumored to possess vast treasures and sacred relics, including the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant. The idea of hidden Templar riches continues to capture the public imagination, inspiring countless quests and expeditions in search of lost treasures. Mysterious photograph captured in the Grand Canyon. Nestled within the rugged terrain of the American Southwest lies one of the world's most awe-inspiring natural wonders, the Grand Canyon. Carved over millions of years by the relentless forces of wind and water, this vast chasm stretches for miles across the arid landscape, its sheer cliffs and towering spires standing as a testament to the power of nature. Yet beneath its majestic beauty lies a tapestry of mysteries, hidden within its depths and waiting to be uncovered by those daring enough to venture into its depths. One user unveils a mysterious photograph captured by his uncle during the 1980s, and it stands out as one of the eeriest tourist pictures ever taken. The spectral photograph showcases an uncanny figure resembling an extraordinarily tall, extremely pale, and immensely unsettling bald man cloaked in darkness. The mysterious presence of this dark entity looms within the foliage, seemingly keeping a vigilant watch over a tourist teetering perilously close to the brink of the Grand Canyon.